You're listening to Season 3 of Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast. I'm Kimberly Evans, and I've been planning events, workshops, retreats, and socials for almost 20 years. After working with so many incredible clients and entrepreneurs, and personally experiencing hardship in life and business, I've discovered how powerful our mindset and purpose is in creating a life of joy and celebration while having a whole lot of fun along the way. Join me with a coffee or cocktail as I connect with inspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, tastemakers, and extraordinary people as they share their journey in life and business and how they are striving to live a life of purpose. Your fears and beliefs in yourself will be transformed as you work towards creating the best version of yourself from the inside out. You're in good company. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life. Today on Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, I'm chatting with Kaitlyn Blair, owner of Spruce Homes. Originally from Missouri, Kaitlyn has settled into Saskatoon and together with her husband has built an incredible team and business. Kaitlyn puts her heart and soul into every project she takes on. With a background in design, Kaitlyn's unique concepts and ideas encompass a charming Southern flair. Her attention to detail and the way she gets to know her clients and their lifestyle is what sets her apart from the rest. She is a wife, mama, and due any day now with her second baby, loves to decorate, and has a major cheesecake obsession. Tune in as we chat all about business, life, balance, reframing our perspective when life hands out really difficult cards, and how she has turned some of Saskatoon's most rundown houses into something spectacular. Hello, Kaitlyn. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
This is so fun. I am so excited that we were able to connect. And ironically, we met because of, I had heard of your company before, obviously, but we met through the September curated content social that you attended out at City Girl Flower Farm. And I just was so happy to meet you and hear more about your business and the amazing work that you and your husband are doing. And I can't wait to dive right into all this today.
Awesome. I'm so excited to chat with everybody.
So what is your background and how did you start Spruce Homes? Let's just dig right in and hear it right from the beginning.
So it's kind of an interesting story, actually. I'm from the US and my husband is from Canada, but he actually went to school down in the States in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where I'm from, even though I went to school in Indiana, which is a neighboring state. But basically, we met when he was in university back in the US, and we dated for only about a year and a half, and then we were both about to graduate, so his visa was going to expire. So basically, we had to make the decision, do we get married? Do you just move home and we try to do this long distance between country thing? And so basically we decided to get married. So we got married in the US, and then right after we got married, we moved up to Canada. And so Brad, which is my husband, he comes from a family of serial entrepreneurs. His family owns several businesses. And they have for a very long time. It's been passed down from generation to generation. So he kind of had that ingrained in his head that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't grow up with that background whatsoever. I kind of graduated university, worked in the corporate world, hated it, to be honest. And so once we got married, he was like, let's start a business together. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it, because I hate corporate life and it can't be any worse than this. So basically, we got married and decided, let's do this business thing. He had done some training in real estate investing, and so he was really interested in that. He has a bachelor's degree in finance, and then he has a master's degree in small business kind of entrepreneurship, and so he was really driven by that. I had always loved home decor, HGTV. When we lived in the States, I had my own Etsy store where I made stuff and sold it, and so we kind of both just combined those passions and decided, let's get into the real estate world in Canada. And so when we moved up here, we worked on a business plan, and probably within the first year of being in Canada, we came about with our business.
Wow. Just go big or go home, hey?
Yeah, kind of. It wasn't a great start, to say the least, not in a bad way, but we had to work full-time jobs for about 3 to 3.5 years before we were able to go full-time into Spruce Homes. So basically we would work all day. just our normal jobs. And then we would work on our business in the evenings and the weekends. And it was really, really draining, but we had to do that until we could financially support ourselves on just Spruce Homes.
Right. Good for you. Well, and I mean, here you are already living in a different country and being in a different city and learning how to be a Canadian and being newly married and just life all new, and then starting a business. Like, that is not for the weak of heart.
It was definitely an emotional time in my life. It was actually my idea to move to Canada. Funny enough, though, I had really only visited in the summer, so I had no idea what the winters were like. And then we moved here in February. And so it was my idea to move here. And then I probably cried for the first year wanting to go home. And my husband was like, no, like, you committed to move here for 5 years. I did when we decided to move here, because immigration is not cheap and it was a lot to get us here.
Yeah.
So, but after I got over that hump and kind of met people in the community and the business started getting up and going, it got a lot better.
That's amazing. I love that. So then once you finally got to the point where you were able to dive right in, did you then both quit your day jobs at the same time and like dive right in? Or how did you, I feel like that's the question that I hear often from listeners and just from other entrepreneurs that I'm talking to. You have this idea and you feel confident in your idea, but there's still this underlying feeling like, what if this fails? What if this doesn't work? What if we're setting ourselves up for disaster? What if we can't support ourselves? Like, all of the fears that speak to ourselves sometimes more loudly than the excitement of starting a business. How did you navigate that and eventually just like cut ties and just say, we're going for it?
The timing was a little bit interesting. So I actually stepped away from working another job after we had our little girl. So basically I went on mat leave and then I just didn't go back. And that was kind of my transition period. So during kind of that mat leave time, I was still working on our business, but my husband was still working the full-time job. And then once the mat leave ended, he also stepped away. So we kind of both stepped away at the same time, which is weird timing because all of a sudden we have another mouth to feed. Right. So there was definitely a lot of pressure on that, but we kind of made the decision, like, there's no such thing as a plan B. Like, we're putting all of our eggs in this plan A basket and we're just going to make this work no matter what it takes.
That's amazing. So once you jumped in and you started doing this, what was your process? Because this is not like, I think a lot of people look at HGTV TV shows. Since you referenced that already, I'll bring us back to that. They look at those shows or look at just things that you see on social media and Pinterest, and everyone who has any sort of sense of their own style knows how they may want their home to look, or like the little details. And it's fun kind of picking that part out. But that's the only part that you often sort of see really brought to the forefront, not my husband and I have been in real estate for a number of years as well, and had revenue properties and have renovated and built and done all kinds of things that we've hired out for, done ourselves, kind of a combination of all of it. So I fully respect and understand how incredible the details and things that you guys take on in your business. It's not a small task to renovate small or big projects. And how did you guys just come up with this method and system? Like, did you just all of a sudden have somebody that was like, yes, okay, I want you to do our house? I know you guys spent extensive time renovating your own cute little house and making it your own. Was that sort of how your inspiration for this got started, to know that you would have the ability to do this for other people as well?
Not so much. We, during that real estate training that we did, we kind of went around the country and actually did lots of training on it. And so we got into flipping houses first. So basically there was no customer in the middle until the house was done, and then we put it up for sale.
Okay.
So basically when we did that, that's when we were working full time at our other jobs. So we would renovate the house in the evenings. So we would work all day, come home, have dinner, and then we would go to whatever house we were flipping, work all night, do the same thing the next day. We would sometimes sleep on the floor there. It was hilarious. But basically when we started flipping houses, it was very like cosmetic flipping, and we did everything ourselves unless it was like obviously plumbing or electrical, things like that we hired out. But it was all hands on deck and just learning as we went. And as we continued to do more houses, we would hire more out. And then obviously now we're to the point now where we have our own staff, and basically I oversee the entire interior design portion of things, and my husband oversees the construction and financial side of the business. So when we started out, we were doing everything, and now we're to the point where we have an amazing staff that's very, very talented, and we're able to work hand in hand with them. So it was definitely a slow transition. That took probably 2 years of just doing all the work ourselves before we transitioned into having actual staff.
That is amazing. Well, and yeah, like, so how do you find when you are now working with clients and people that are getting you to do projects for them, and you're not the person who has to do everything on your own now, which I can only imagine has just given both you and your husband such incredible insight to what it feels like for your clients and customers, as well as like you've had your hand in all of those things from the ground up. So you can kind of just fully understand some of the stresses that come up and different things. And it probably really gives you a leg up of being able to really communicate effectively when you understand what sort of things your clients might be feeling stressed about in the process of renovating.
For sure. I think one of the best things we ever did, honestly, was we bought a house to actually flip it and resell it. And in the middle of the flip, we decided like, this is a house that we could live in. So we flipped it to ourselves, we'll call it. And so we went through that whole process of renovating a custom home to be our family home. And then this last year, we actually built ourselves a bungalow on an acreage. And so now we've also built ourselves a custom home. So we renovated ourselves a home and built ourselves a home. So now we've like been in those client shoes 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what they're thinking when they have all these decisions to make, and I've got all these options in front of them and their head is just spinning. So
Totally.
I'm glad I've been in those shoes before, because it would have been easier for me. It would have been easy for me to say before, like, oh my gosh, just make a decision. But now I know what that feels like. I know when you're looking at all these samples, you're like, I love this, but I have to love this in 10 years because I'm building myself this custom home that I'm not moving out of anytime soon.
Well, and don't you find sometimes, I feel like I can relate to this a little bit from an event perspective, where somebody comes in and has an idea of what they want the end result to look like. They also have ideas sometimes as to what they think the right look of certain details are going to be to get to the end result, but you almost have to be a bit of a translator in, okay, I am understanding what this overall vision is going to be, and I promise that I'm going to make this be your overall vision, but you have to trust that the steps that we're going to take to get to that overall vision may not necessarily fully be what you think it's going to take to get it to the end, because I see the bigger picture and I want this to be exceeding your wildest expectations.
For sure. And I feel like one of the main things I end up doing is almost being a bit of a marriage counselor.
Yes.
Because so often the husband and the wife have very differing styles. And so it's just finding that balance to kind of bring both of their styles together in a way that they're going to love it. So I find it's actually one of the most fun parts of my job is working with husbands and wives, because you get the chance to know them and know what they each like and just kind of help guide them to come to a decision together.
I love that. Well, I have often said in my own career too, I feel like a psychology degree would have been an added bonus for me to have in this industry, probably a lot of industries just like yours. I love that.
For
so
sure.
How do you continue to stay inspired and working on lots of different projects at once, and you have an eye for design and you're passionate about it? How do you interpret what somebody is wanting, and what would the process be, I guess? So if someone listening today is like, oh my goodness, this is exactly how I'm feeling. I want to renovate, or I want to do something, and I have a general idea, but I don't even really know where to begin. I think the idea of just making the initial reach out to a builder or renovation company can feel almost daunting unto itself, because you sometimes think you maybe need to have like to know exactly what you want, or you know what I mean? Rather than just doing the reach out and saying, hey, how does this process actually work to work with Spruce Homes?
Exactly. So basically someone will reach out to us and say, I either want to build a custom home or I want to put an addition on my house. And they have just kind of some general ideas of what they're wanting. And we sit down in the office and kind of go over floor plans and what their needs are as a family, either in their existing home or in a new home. And we work with them basically the entire time. So we either create a floor plan with them if it's a new build, and go back and forth quite a bit until it's perfect. Or if it's something like an addition or a renovation, we obviously help them through that entire process as well. But the first thing I do on a design standpoint with clients that I think is super, super important is that I set up a Pinterest account with them. So basically they have their Pinterest account and we have our Spruce Homes Pinterest account, and I have them create boards for either the home or each room, and I link with each of those boards. So as they're pinning things that they like, I'm able to see kind of what style they have or what they hope their house to look like in the end. And that really gives me an idea of where I need to go with the design.
I love that. That's so nice, because I feel like sometimes even if you aren't totally certain of what your design style is, a Pinterest board is such a good way to all of a sudden it just like magically appears. You realize that you're like pinning things and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I am noticing a little bit of a pattern here in what I'm posting and what I'm liking. And it almost like paints this picture that just kind of naturally happens.
One of the funny things is I don't know how to even unhook this, but for some reason, Pinterest alerts me when my clients are pinning things. And I swear all of them start pinning at like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. They just must lay in bed and scroll and pin, and that is like their time.
Well, that's so funny because I am not on Pinterest all that much. I like have gone through phases on it. I really like Pinterest, and I'll like go through phases where I'm on it a little bit more, or there'll be something that I'm like a specific project that I'm working on where I'm like, okay, yeah, definitely needing to just like put this all on a board together or something. But that's exactly right. I'm not one for being on my phone at night, but that to me, honestly, is the most relaxing thing to just be pinning. It's like you don't really need to be paying attention. It's not feeling like you're like consuming. Yeah, you can just pin, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. You can just put things there, and if you don't like it, you can delete it later. Like there's just no, oh, I totally understand that. So you have to just make sure your phone is off so that you aren't getting 8,000 alerts in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. So then they meet with you, they have your Pinterest board, they've been discussing. And then from this point, like, so I would imagine like there's times obviously when it's not a new build, like people are still living through these renovations. And I have lived through many, many, many renovations. And that is not also something that's for the weak of heart. That is super stressful, especially when you have kids and other things going on. And especially right now during a pandemic, when there's not sort of other places to always kind of go the way we normally would be just like out and about in a regular time. How do you keep things, I guess, as stress-free as possible for clients as they anticipate how these projects play out?
So we use a software called Builder Trend, and it's basically like a builder's organization tool. So clients have access to it, and it's an app that they have on their phone, and it basically just has our little Spruce Homes logo on it, and they click into it, and they can see the full schedule day by day, who's in their house or who's in their new build, what's happening that day. There's daily logs with photos that we put in there, so that they can see the progress as it goes. We do change orders in there. So basically, if they want to upgrade something or add something to the house as the project continues, we send a change order through that app and they approve it. And then their total at the amount changes, whether they approved it or denied it, so that they always know what the total of their project is going to be. We never want to be those people who slap on an extra $5,000 at the end. We're super transparent with everything throughout the whole build. So that builder software has allowed our clients to be like fully in the loop without having to call or text us every day.
Wow, that must save on so much little tiny communication.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so amazing. I don't know how we like ran a business without it.
Well, and I think you're so right. I think there's a lot of industries where not just home building, but definitely that would be included in that, where I think there's this fear, especially from people who maybe have never renovated or done anything like this before, where this is a first time, or maybe somebody's had a bad experience before with somebody else, and it's just kind of left a bit of a stress to them to think about doing something like that again. I think transparency is so important in every industry. And I think it's so great that you're talking about that, because I think that would be a big fear, I would imagine, in clients that, and in my industry too, like there would definitely be easy ways to just throw extra costs in, but being people of integrity and transparency is such important qualities. So how do you communicate all of that with your clients from the get-go to get them to feel that they can understand? Because this is a big purchase. This is not just oh, hey, I want to buy a new mirror for my bathroom. This is like, this is a big deal, right? This isn't just like a few dollars rolling around. These are big purchases for people that are deciding to do these, and making your house feel like a home is a big deal.
No, exactly. So from the beginning, like you said, we try to be as transparent as possible. So we actually design the entire home with our clients before we even sign the final contract. So basically we have everything priced before we even put a shovel in the ground. So basically I take them cabinetry shopping, flooring, tile shopping. We put the entire design together and have a price for them before they sign on the dotted line. There's going to be changes throughout the build, little things they want to add here and there, usually pretty small. Like sometimes people want to add extra outlets as we go, or they want to add a mantle when they didn't think they wanted one, or a fireplace. So there are little things like that that we send through change orders, but basically from the time that they sign and give us their deposit, they know exactly what their total is going to be at the end, which I think is really, really key. Because a lot of people will just start the build and their builders will give them like allowances for things and then send them to pick out their own materials. But what I found is that those builders give very small allowances to get the build, to make themselves kind of seem like the cheapest option. But then when clients go to pick, let's call it their cabinetry, they realize that they have this really small allowance that's not going to get them what they want. So then they end up going way over budget, and then the whole process just becomes stressful.
Oh, that is so true. Because I think that really is it's almost like more of a all-inclusive option versus an a la carte, right? Like you can, I think, because that's the part that's so scary, right? Especially if you are on a budget, which doesn't matter what your budget is, whether you are building a smaller priced home or a high ticket priced home, there's always a budget. It doesn't really matter how expensive the thing is. Everybody is still trying to stay on budget regardless of what the bottom line is of the project, right? And so I think that's so important. And I have never heard of that as being a way that someone has run their building business before. I think that's so amazing.
Thank you.
So now when somebody, they come and they meet with you, this process is all starting, what for yourself as the designer, how do you interpret? So you're using the Pinterest board, you're using your ability and your design expertise, and now the expertise you've had in doing this for many people. How do you make final decisions on actually customizing the things? What's your design process as an entrepreneur and as a designer? And how do you kind of pick the things out and put it all together to know that you're going to get the end result that you're looking for?
So we're really lucky in our city here of Saskatoon, and the suppliers that we work with all local suppliers that have amazing showrooms. So I have the ability to take our clients into the showroom. So for example, our cabinetry, the supplier that we work with has a wonderful showroom that probably has 10 different kitchen displays in it. So I can actually take clients in there and show them what all the different gadgets are going to be that they have options for, all of the cabinetry colors and handles and countertops. And we can kind of work through that together, which I think the clients really enjoy, instead of me kind of picking a couple things and then bringing them two options. The clients like to see what all the different options are and then have me there to kind of hold their hand, put their vision to life. And so we're able to go to all those suppliers and pick out the selections together. And I think that's been a really important part of the design process. And we're so lucky to work with the suppliers that we do. They just treat us so, so well and have for so many years. And so if we didn't have that, I think it would be really challenging. But I would say that's kind of my key with clients for the design process, is just taking them there so they can see what there is, and then doing a bit of a process of elimination, because the husband will like one thing and the wife will like another thing. And then I'll throw in a sample that kind of combines the two. And that's kind of how we make the magic happen.
Well, and it probably feels like such a relief to them to know that there's a middle person who wants their best intentions at heart, and you're trying to make this, it's no benefit to you to give them a room or kitchen or whatever that they don't like. So you obviously have their best intentions, but that you get to almost be a little bit of the mediator in between, because I would say that house renovations and any projects from big to small would be up there in lists of relationship disputes.
Oh, for sure. It's got to be up there with talking about finances.
Totally. I'll speak from personal experience there, that I'm going to guarantee that it's up there with things that are most stressful to have happen in your relationship. So if you really want to test your relationship prior to getting married or figuring out who the person is you want to spend your life with, maybe just try a reno and just test out the water.
Yeah, exactly. That is the true test, if you will survive or not.
There's the key. I love it.
I'll get back to the show in 20 seconds, but I wanted to give you a moment to snag a Christmas sweet treat grazing box just in time for the holidays. Shipping gifts across Canada is going to be a big part of Christmas this year, and my festively curated Christmas sweet treat grazing box will make Christmas extra special. Filled with candy, chocolates, and sweet holiday favorites, this is a creative gift for friends, neighbors, teachers, coworkers, and anyone special in your life that you care about. This beautiful, festive Christmas sweet treat grazing box can be shipped right to your door for free in Saskatoon, or shipping is available across Canada. Best of all, a portion of each sweet treat box goes to supporting Cassidy's lemonade stand for cystic fibrosis. Give and receive. And because we could all use a little more joy right now, as a listener of Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, you get an exclusive code to receive 10% off your Christmas sweet treat grazing box order with the code CELEBRATE10. You can click right from home at celebratingsimplelife.com and use the code CELEBRATE10, because today is a great day to celebrate. All right, friend, back to the show.
So how for yourself, I know that you are a mama and a wife and entrepreneur, and this job, this career and building, there are so many details in one project, let alone having many projects on the go at once. How do you find for yourself that you juggle it all? I know we as women try to do all the things and wear all the hats, and it's easy to look at somebody's life from the outside looking in and think, oh wow, they just have it all together, this is so easy and it's just beautiful and this is just HGTV all of the time. How do you balance it all and find ways to feel like you're present at work and present at home and in all of the other areas of your life?
I mean, honestly, Kimberly, in 100% honesty, this is probably the hardest part of my life at almost all times, is trying to do just that, because you feel like you're constantly pulled in so many different directions. And I found it was a lot easier. We have a 3-year-old or 3.5-year-old daughter now. And I found it was so much easier when she was a baby because we just took her everywhere. And so I did a little bit of a unique maternity leave. Being from the US, we actually only get 6 weeks maternity leave. And then I moved here and it was a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so different.
Go Canada.
Yeah. And so because we owned a business and just the way things were going, Ray, which is our daughter, she stayed with me for 4 months after she was born and just came to work with Brad and I, and was just this happy little baby on our shoulder at all times. And then once she got to the point where she was crawling and just needed lots more attention, we kind of knew that was the time to put her into a daycare or a play school. And so I was able to find one just a couple doors down from our house.
Oh, sweet.
Yes. And the family just has loved on her since she was four months old, and now she's 3.5. And so we've moved since then. So I used to just walk her to daycare, and now I drive a half hour there just to drop her off, and then a half hour in the evenings to pick her up. But honestly, I have such a connection with them, and they're almost like a family to me that I would never switch her at this point. So I would say they have been a huge help in helping me be able to balance life as a woman, a wife, a mother, a business owner, all of those things. And then we're actually expecting our second baby here in 2 weeks. So yeah, that's really going to put an interesting twist. How we work that, we kind of don't know what our plan is at this point. He'll come to work with me just like, it's going to be a little boy. He'll come to work with me just like Ray did. But yeah, it's going to be different. And honestly, at the beginning of this year, my husband and I had to sit down and have a real conversation. At that point, we were both working pretty equally in the business, Spruce Homes, but it was becoming evident that something was going to have to give, because it was just becoming too stressful for both of us to be as involved in the business with a family as we were. And so I decided to be the one to take a step back, and put on more of that parent role and be the one to do kind of all of the driving and pickups from daycare, all of the activities like gymnastics and dance. And that's not to say that my husband doesn't help, because if I ask him, he is more than happy to like help me drive one day or do gymnastics, that kind of a thing. But we kind of just had to decide like who's going to take on that parent role and who's going to be the one to kind of drive this business forward. And my husband was much more of the drive the business forward person with his background. And so it worked out. And honestly, I've noticed a huge, I don't know if I would call it like a shift in things, but it's been a positive shift because there's less stress. There's less pointing fingers. There's less of, are you going to do this? Or am I going to do this? That kind of a thing. And we're both feeling really fulfilled in our roles. And I think that's the most important part of it.
Well, I love that you said that, because I feel like regardless of whether someone is an entrepreneur and running their own business or not, obviously that adds a whole nother set of pressures completely. I totally get that. But I feel like anybody that's just doing life and trying to figure out how to maintain a career and family and all of the things, and throw in a world pandemic and throw in you having another baby. Like, you know, there's just always things. And I feel like I remember when I was younger, my kids are 12 and 9. And so being in those baby stages with them, I remember always thinking, oh, wow, like this feels challenging. Like this is really hard to juggle, the full-time career and the kids and all of the things. I loved it. And it was just, you're just in this state and you kind of just roll with it because you don't really know any differently, right? You're just sort of going with it day to day. This is just the way that it feels. But there gets to be different points and stages, and you can't ever predict. You only know what you know when your kids are a certain age. And then when they hit the next stage, you only know what you know then, right? There's really no manual or book in being like, hey, this is how it's going to be in 3 years when your kids are this age. you know?
And every stage is just so different.
Yeah. And it's hard to predict how your mindset is going to feel towards those stages. I remember going through a phase in my world, working full-time, right as Cassidy got diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, which was just rocked our absolute worlds. Never in a million years was that something that you anticipate or think could happen to your child. And then when that happened, I just remember my mindset of the career that I had worked so hard in and the job that I loved so much and the people that I worked with and the clients that I worked with, like it was everything I always wanted for my life. And it was like in a split second of that happening to her, all of a sudden my whole entire mind just completely shifted to none of this matters anymore. This is where my priorities need to lie now, because this was something that wasn't there yesterday, and today this is here, and this is just the way that it is. And it's just amazing to me how stages and just things that you can't predict happening in your life, no matter whether they're good or hard, can just really change that shift. And I think that being able to move into those things, and I think everybody has seen as this pandemic has played out too, there doesn't need to be rules that are, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. There's sort of just figuring this out as you go along, and what works for you yesterday might not work for you today, and that's okay.
Oh yeah. I think you can have the most perfect plan in your head mapped out, and something can happen, like you said with your daughter, and it just completely changes things. I know last year, my husband and I, we lost 2 babies. So we had 2 miscarriages back to back. And that just really opened up my eyes that I just wanted to be with my daughter more. It was just like this instant flip of a switch. And it was like, something's got to give. I'm stressed out about work. I'm stressed out because we keep losing babies and my heart is broken over and over again. I just need some time to be with her. And that's kind of when we made that shift into kind of Brad taking the lead role of the business and me just taking a little bit of a step back.
Oh, I can completely hear you on that. And I think it's so important. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, as none of us have ever experienced a 2020 before, this is all new for all of us in how the world is sort of playing out right now. Nobody could have predicted. We didn't know how this was going to feel. And there kind of is no rules on how you respond to this, right? You kind of just have to feel this out and do what feels right for you and trust your own intuition and your own kind of purpose in life as to how we're all moving forward from this. But I think that it would just be such a miss if during these times of uncertainty right now and doing things that we've never experienced before, if we wouldn't take the time to actually recognize what is important to us and being able to use this as a, you know what, even once things do go quote unquote back to normal, I guess, who knows what that's going to all look like. To just recognize how, like, what is it right now that is stressful or not stressful? What's good in your life? What's not good in your life? And just being okay to sit in that uncomfortableness a little bit. Does that make sense? Where it's just like, it's okay to change things up, and it's okay even if people don't think it's the right idea. It's okay to just make those decisions and talk with the people that are in your family and in your life about how to move forward on things. I just think that that's so important.
Yeah, I think sitting in that uncomfortableness may seem so hard at first, but I think the reward of actually doing it is massive.
I totally agree. And I think to realize too, like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I had this idea when I was younger and thinking about how being a grown-up would feel before you have all of the scars that can come to you from being an adult and all of the things that cross our lives. I had this idea that and I think sometimes my mind still flashes through this idea, and I have to remind myself that it is all of these uncomfortable things and hard things and good things and amazing things and all of these pieces that contribute to our life feeling the way that it is. It's not that something is happening to us or something is all of a sudden we're going to wake up one day and be like, oh, everything is right with the world. Not one single thing is going to go wrong today, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think I've always been a believer that everything happens for a reason. And although it may seem so painful in the moment, I know that there is a plan. I know that God has a plan for each and every one of us. And I know that when I lost those babies, it was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. But I know that there was a reason behind it and a plan. And through losing those babies, I've been able to use our platform to share about miscarriage and to talk with other women who have gone through miscarriages and be a part of the community. And I feel like that was God's plan for it all along.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's just, I can completely relate with my daughter. I have not experienced miscarriage, so I cannot relate to that specific experience. But in the experience of thinking that you were anticipating something to be a certain way and then it not being that way, especially when it comes to our children, is just not something that is easy to describe unless you've been through an experience like that. But I think because it's so hard to talk about and hard to, it's just such an uncomfortable and hurtful thing to go through that you don't wish upon anybody, that I think that more we can share, even like this today, talking about this and putting this out there, that it's just okay. It's okay to not be okay for a while. It's okay to just feel our feelings. And there's going to be little pieces that there's many days in a week where there's just something that'll happen that just makes me feel a little bit sad and uncomfortable about the fact that my child has to live her life with a chronic illness. And there's things that just happen that feel harder. And then there's things that happen that are so unbelievably amazing and miraculous that have come out of her having cystic fibrosis, which I would never wish upon anybody, yet we can honestly in our family say we're grateful that this happened, even though we wish this didn't have to be the hardships that she's going through. There have just been so many miracles that have come out of it that it's just made, this is just how she was always supposed to be. It wasn't something that happened to us.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important way to look at it, is more of an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, wow, I feel like we could like go on forever here on this topic. This will be a whole nother episode that we will dig into. I really appreciate you sharing that and how open you are about your personal life as well as your business. And I think that just goes to show really the integrity that you and your husband are creating with Spruce Homes and the team that you're building there. To just want the clients and customers that come to you to feel like they are now a part of the Spruce Homes family too.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. So before we wrap this up, of course, I have to ask you, we'll dig even more personally into your, but fun questions about your life.
Perfect.
So what would you say is one thing that you do in the morning that sets the tone for your day?
So I am like a hungry hippo when I wake up. So my morning routine is I wake up, I eat, I do prayer, and then I journal. So journaling has become a really big part of my life. And it's something that has helped me through some of the darkest times. And so I love being able to kind of write out my feelings, write out my goals, write out my prayers, and be able to look back at those years later. So that is something that I'm very adamant about doing each morning.
I love that. Are you a coffee drinker, and what is your coffee order?
Hardcore coffee drinker, which is what makes pregnancy so hard for me. So when I'm not pregnant, my coffee order would be a vanilla latte, extra shot of espresso. When I am pregnant, it's a decaf latte, which is so sad to drink, but still pretty delicious.
The end is near. You are nearly going to be drinking coffee before you know it.
Oh, I know. I'm going to be bouncing off the wall. Like, can you see it?
All that energy you're going to need for when you're not sleeping again.
Yeah, exactly.
What is something that you always have in your purse day to day, or something that when you're traveling, you just cannot live without?
I was talking to my husband about this, and he was like, I don't even know what you would say. You can't find anything in your purse. But honestly, the one thing in my purse that I like always have with me is oil pads, which sounds hilarious, but I have like really oily skin. And so oil pads are like those little pieces of tissue paper that you just blot on your face to take the oil off around your nose.
I love it.
I always have those with me because I hate feeling oily.
That's brilliant. I think that's the first time I've ever had that answer. I love it. What is your favorite junk food, or in your case, pregnancy craving?
Ooh, Tim Hortons apple fritter all the way.
I
have put on double the weight I put on with our first child, and I don't even feel shame about it because I've been eating so well.
I absolutely love it. Well, and then once you have 2 kids, you're like doing double the steps, so you don't have to worry about the calories you put on when you're pregnant. Yeah. That was what I told myself during my second, when I gained double the weight second time around versus first time around. And I was like, oh boy, perhaps French fries was the wrong craving.
No doubt.
But it just goes away and life goes on, and just enjoy your fritters. Yeah. What was the first concert or most memorable concert that you've attended?
Okay, first concert ever attended, Backstreet Boys, and it was
Yes! The best.
it was back home in the US, and that was like at their prime. I think I was probably in like the 3rd grade or something.
Oh my word. It would have been epic.
It was epic for sure.
I love that. What is one thing that you love doing in your free time, which I'm sure you don't have a lot of?
Yeah, this was actually probably the hardest one for me to answer. So I would say things I love to do in my free time. I love antique shopping. I've always been a huge antique girl, especially growing up in the South. We have amazing antique stores, and it's like half the cost of the antiques in Canada. There's so much more expensive here. It kind of blows my mind. But I love going to different antique shops, and I also love thrift shopping. So like almost all of my daughter's clothes I buy secondhand, and I love going to like Once Upon a Child and just like scouring through the racks and looking for cute items that are like $2 and being so excited about it. So those are 2 things I love to do in my free time.
Like treasure hunting.
It is like treasure
I know.
hunting.
I always see, well, on HGTV shows or just in our many travels throughout the States, you see these little antique shops like popping up on the side of the road or in like different communities that you're going through. And most of the time we have flown to destinations. So you're like, well, none of this stuff can really come home with me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so inexpensive and amazing. How can I not bring this home?
Oh, decorating would be so much cheaper if we lived there.
Right? Oh goodness. We'll have to just rent a vehicle and do a around the States, big road trip with a truck. Yeah. What is your favorite travel destination or place you're most looking forward to going once we can think of travel in a regular time again?
I know, other than home. Which
Yes, for you, home.
Missouri. My favorite spot in the whole world I've ever been to is called Hilton Head, South Carolina. My husband and I went there a couple years ago, and it is just absolutely beautiful. The beach is beautiful. My husband's a huge golfer, and they have PGA Pro course there, and we rent bicycles and ride our bikes everywhere and go to the coffee shop and eat delicious seafood. It was the best vacation we've ever had, and we totally plan on going back.
Oh my goodness. And as we've been experiencing the blizzards here and snowfalls, that sounds absolutely magical right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Last question here, what would a perfect day look like for you if you had your own agenda for the whole day and had no commitments or places you needed to be?
Oh man, this might seem kind of silly, but a perfect day for me would be like waking up at 5:30 in the morning and not feeling tired.
That's good.
Just being able to get a whole bunch of stuff done around the house and for work before our little girl wakes up, and then just letting the day kind of go as it pleases without an agenda and still not being tired, even though I woke up at 5:30. The whole point of the perfect day would be getting things done, not being tired, and just kind of doing whatever we please that day.
That sounds amazing. And I promise, being in a decade further stage of children, I promise you will not feel tired one day. I promise.
Oh, I hope so.
It just will be a little while yet, but I promise someday you will wake up at 5:30 rested. I'll catch up with you. I'll catch up with you in 10 years and see if that happens.
Yeah. Ask me in 10 years if it's happened yet, please.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Kaitlyn. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and I have your links in the show notes. So anyone listening can find Spruce Homes and check out all of the amazing projects that they have on the go. And just thank you so much for just showing up as yourself today.
Oh, thank you, Kimberly. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, is a proud member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, which is supported by Connexus. Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus Money Talk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all life stages and events. Getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving, they cover it all and more. And did I mention it's free? Check it out today at connexusmoneytalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life on Apple Podcasts or download and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. These reviews, ratings, and sharing screenshots of podcast episodes that were engaging for you on your Instagram stories and tagging friends that you think should hear the episode too really helps the podcast grow. It makes me so happy that I often select reviews to read on the show, and if yours is chosen, you will receive a special gift from me. Thank you for being a part of my mission to connect stories of business and life. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.